Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Retrocar Style. Today was supposed to be the day where I show you the prime and then start procedure on the SAAB 900, but things didn't go according to plan. Of course not. Just didn't go down the way. I did get it running, I did get it started, but boy was it with a roller coaster ride. So I want to give you a bit of a background story from the last video that you saw me dropping the engine in the bay until now on this car. So that night when I was putting the engine in, I had got everything in to the point to where I could crank the engine over. I was expecting it to start so I could drive it out of the shop. Didn't happen. So I came to the realization at that point, that I had no spark, and I did everything I could. I was trying to get spark, I was trying to get it to sputter, I was trying to get it to fart. It wouldn't do a damn thing. This thing was dead, and I was very disappointed because I'd worked very hard to get it going, so I could, continue creating YouTube content, and not only that, but just to drive the car and enjoy it, kind of keep up with my restoration efforts and whatnot. And things weren't going according to plan. It was very frustrating. What I found out is that at some point during the engine removal is that the distributor in front got damaged. And when I looked at it, I noticed it was a little bit different than most of the distributors I've seen for this car. But for some reason, I just wasn't paying that much close attention to it until later. And so I just kept going and trying to figure things out. And there was some changes happening. I left the dealer, started a different job. Of course, you saw me in the last video. And then I tried to get back on the SAAB so I could get it running. And I thought, okay, no problem. I'll just buy another distributor, and I'll fix the problem. Well, I bought another distributor, and that didn't work out either. That distributor had gone bad. So I bought one that was no good. It was used off of eBay for like $100, no big deal. Both of those distributors have Hall senders in them, and they're both repairable. Here's the issue. Long time ago, before I bought the car, the previous owner had a crankshaft position sensor failure. Now, I had no idea you could do this until recently. I have been doing a bunch of reading and whatnot. But if you have a crankshaft position sensor failure in one of these cars, you can actually put a distributor that has a Hall sender in it, and it will do the same thing as the CPS sensor, and the car will run. Well, that's what they had done on this particular car. I just didn't know it. So I had to figure all that out. Once I figured out, I was like, okay, well, why didn't they just get another sensor? Until I discovered that the sensors are almost non-existent anymore, until I sifted through the forums and found out where you could actually get them. So very hard to come by, but I actually got my hands on a couple of them. And then I found a source where you can get them brand new, and I'm going to share that with you guys later on in some later episodes. So if you have a later model car, and I do believe that the CPS sensor started in, I want to say late 88 all the way to 94, and the convertible was the last car they ever made. They stopped the Combis, or the hatchbacks, in 1993. This is a 92 model, so it does have the CPS sensor. So I'm going to reveal where you can get sensors for a very, very good price. They're kind of expensive if you get them online in some places, but I have a source where you can get them right here in the United States for cheap. I'm going to share that with you later. So yeah, I got the sensor in there, and I'm going to show you how to change the sensor on this should this happen to your SAAB, if you have a situation where you have a crankshaft position sensor failure. So how it works is the SAAB EZK ignition system and the Bosch Motronic, was it the L242, LH242, it works a lot like the older cars, whereas the computer will not run the fuel pump or cycle the injectors until it gets a pulse signal from either a distributor or the crankshaft position sensor. And in this case, the reason I couldn't get the darn thing started is because I wasn't getting a signal from anything. Both the distributor I bought was bad, and the one that I had on the car somehow, don't ask me how, it just got damaged, and it got damaged while, after I took it out somehow. which is strange because that same distributor is on the car. It does the job of distributing spark, and this one has the job of also creating the pulse signal. But I just disconnected the wires, and now it just distributes spark. So the car runs just fine. Has a little bit of a tick in it, but I suspect that's only because I haven't been running it long enough. I don't have any of the belts on it. There is coolant and oil in it. But yeah, I don't run it very long because the belts aren't on it, and the water pump isn't turning. So at some point I got a couple of bugs to work out with it. For example, while it's running, I can't get it to go into gear. It grinds the gears a little bit. I think that has something to do with the clutch, and that's something else that I had to do when I when I was putting this thing together. And this happened back at the dealer. I put everything together, went to press the clutch pedal, and I heard this poof noise. I was like, oh, that didn't feel good, because the pedal went to the floor. And I came out, looked in the engine bay, and it was just brake fluid everywhere. I was so angry. I was like, oh man, this just can't be happening. But I knew at some point that the slave cylinder was gonna go on me, because it was on the edge back then when I had the car running. And so if you've ever had a 900 slave cylinder fail on you, then you know it's almost impossible to get it out of the car without getting very creative. I wrestled and rolled on my back for days in, days out. Took the hood off. I was in here wrenching and doing all kinds of stuff. Never got it out. I tried and I know there's a lot of SAAB enthusiasts. They say, well, why didn't you try the penny method? I tried that. I tried everything to get those pressure plate springs back, and it just wasn't working out. So I went to Home Depot. I said, the hell with this. Went to Home Depot, and I got a Ryobi Sawzall, and I just cut the darn thing in half. And I thought more brake fluid was going to go there, but surprisingly, not a lot came out. But I got it out, got the new slave cylinder in here, and now I think I damaged the pressure plate springs. They do move. I do feel some pressure with the new clutch slave cylinder inside. I also got a brand new clutch master cylinder. I bled the system. However, I can't get it into gear. And I do believe it has something to do with the pressure plate is not releasing enough. I think I damaged some stuff. But in that case, I'm going to try to bleed the clutch a second time. And I'm going to try to bleed the clutch a second time. And if that doesn't work out, I'll be putting a brand new Luck clutch inside. I'm not a fan of the Sachs ones. It has a Sachs clutch release bearing and a Sachs clutch in here. The springs on the Sachs clutch, they seem to be a little bit soft. I've read somewhere that the Luck clutches have a little bit more spring pressure. Nah, that's what I heard. I'm not sure. But I'm just going to put everything Luck and then see where it goes from there. So here is an image of the crankshaft position sensor. As you can see around the sensor, there's this metal housing. It's a sort of a sensor bracket, mounting bracket. Now, when I removed the engine from the car that I was working on back in the shop, I actually, this piece was actually still on the engine, and I removed these small parts, and somehow, I don't know, I placed them in a box and they got misplaced. But it was very unfortunate. But I actually had to get another one. This particular one you see on the screen, this one actually came from Neo Brothers, London, UK. So to take this loose, you're probably just going to need a I think that's a T10 Torx. Okay, there are 2 Torx screws on the back. You simply unscrew these screws, and then there's a spring plate that actually holds the sensor into place. Yeah, and once you get that out, you can just get the sensor out. It's actually fairly easy to rebuild these or replace the sensor in them. But yeah, I had this piece before, and I don't know, I lost it, and I was very upset with that, because this piece came all the way from the UK, and it cost me quite a bit of money. It cost me right around 195 US, and yeah, I wasn't too happy about that. But just to get a bracket, I just needed the bracket. I also went to the SAAB store, and Mikey was able to get me one of those for about $20. So I got 2 of those, and worked out okay. So here's the new crankshaft position sensor. Okay, you can see on the sensor. It's basically the same one. These sensors have always been here, made in the US. They're made by Honeywell, and there is a part number that I'm going to give to you guys so you can actually find these local. One of the things you're going to notice about the sensor right away is that the wiring on the sensor is a little bit, the gauge wire on the sensor is just a little bit smaller than what came from the factory. So but it doesn't really make a difference. You'll also notice that the coloring of the wiring is slightly different as well, as far as which wire goes where. But they're all still, if you look on the back of the sensor, there's a diagram that shows you it all works the same. So in order to get the crankshaft position sensor out, you'll need to remove the crank pulley. It is a 27 millimeter nut that comes out of the crank pulley, and the crank pulley is actually a 2-piece. So I put together a couple of tools. This is just one of the tools I used, and it actually seemed like it would have been a great idea to use this tool, considering that there's very little room between the firewall to work in this area. But this tool didn't prove effective. I thought maybe it was, but it actually broke. And this was a 3/8 drive tool, and it actually just broke that. So I wound up using some other things. Like I said, before you can get to the crank pulley, there is a two-piece pulley. In my particular car, for some reason, there are a couple of three Allens that was holding the pulley to the car. So once you remove that, you can actually look down in there and you can see the 27 millimeter nut sticking up. This is finally what I came up with, since a 27 millimeter nut. This is just a generic wrench that I bought from the store, auto parts store, and you can see I just cut the head of the opened end of the wrench off, and then as far as the other end, the boxed end, you can see some discoloration on the tool itself. I used a very hot torch to get this tool red hot, and I actually took the bend out of it to make the tool straight, because when you have a bend in it, it's very difficult to get it in there and sort of get a grip on it. Now I was able to get this off after I used this, and I actually used a piece of pipe to get the crank pulley off. Use some extra leverage. I was able to get it off, and you can see the nut has been damaged from all the attempts of trying to get the nut off. There was some damage, so I was able to pick up a new nut and a washer and spacer off eBay. I think this paid like $12 to get this. Is not that big of a deal. Here's the back side of the crank pulley. Note that there are two large openings 180 degrees apart. I find that interesting because that lets me know that this engine runs batch fire ignition type pulses. So basically all 4 spark plugs fire at the same time, every 180 degrees. But I mean, only one cylinder is going to fire because of the way the cams and things are. But it's just interesting to know that these engines run batch fire. You can tell by the two large openings in the crankshaft pulley. Here's the sensor mounted to the engine after I rebuilt it and put it back into place. You can see exactly where it sits and how the crankshaft will pass by the new sensor. So here is the slave cylinder that I was talking about. I actually took the Sawzall and cut this thing in half. Didn't take very long to cut it out. Of course, yes, I did remove the shaft before cutting through it, but you can see if you ever get into a jam and you can't get a slave cylinder out after failure, then yes, you can use the Sawzall to cut it in half. I want to show you the pressure plate. Once I got that out, these are the special tools used to hold these pressure plate springs actually open, so that you can install the slave cylinder between the two and sandwich everything in and get it inside the car. This is the new clutch slave cylinder from Luck or LUK. In order to get all of this assembled, I actually watched one of Lee Kelso's videos on how to do this. It's actually pretty interesting. I call this the Lee Kelso method. You can see that I have basically sandwiched everything together with a couple of zip ties, and this is how you're going to install it. Once you get the clutch slave cylinder into place, you can actually cut the zip ties and pull them out, and then everything will be into place. So once I got everything going, the engine, I was actually able to get the engine started, and yeah, it was actually working out fine. However, I was not able to get the clutch to disengage properly, and I can't get the car into gear while the engine's running because it tries to grind the gears, which means the clutch isn't fully disengaging. So either I need to put a brand new clutch or I need to try to bleed it again. It's not too disappointing of news, but I was hoping that everything will be working, but it's just the way things are working out. I don't know. I'm just going to try and get everything to be one brand. I'm going to get, since it's a slave cylinder is a Luck, I'm going to get a Luck clutch release bearing, Luck clutch kit, and everything, and I'm just going to see how that all works out. Hopefully I'll be able to get the engine going with the proper clutch, so that I can engage the car in gear, maybe take it out for a spin after I'm done with everything.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap up today's video here in the Classic SAAB 900. Thanks for tuning in. Probably next video that I put out on this car is probably going to be a clutch replacement if the bleeding procedure does not work. So I'll walk you guys through that in case you have a Classic 900 and you want to see how that's done, or you just enjoy watching the content. Either way, I appreciate your support. If you are not a subscriber and you want to see these videos and get notifications, click the like, share, and subscribe buttons, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.